The origins of the Khmer Empire are shrouded in the mists of prehistory, but what emerges from the layers of time is a civilization that would come to dominate Southeast Asia for centuries. The story of the Khmers begins in the heart of what is now Cambodia, where early communities took root along the rich alluvial plains fed by the mighty Mekong River and vast Tonle Sap Lake. These waters would shape not only the daily lives of the people, but become the very lifeblood of Khmer society and its future grandeur. Long before temples pierced the sky at Angkor, the people of this region learned how to harness the power of water. The annual floods of the Mekong were both a blessing and a challenge. Over generations, the Khmer developed sophisticated irrigation and water management systems, allowing them to support dense populations and intensive rice agriculture. This ingenuity laid the economic bedrock upon which an empire could be built. By the late 1st millennium BCE, Indian traders and missionaries began making their way into mainland Southeast Asia. With them came new ideas, religious beliefs, and forms of governance. Early Khmers absorbed and adapted elements of Hinduism and later Buddhism, weaving foreign philosophy and ritual into their own traditions. These encounters also introduced Sanskrit, which would become the language of the Khmer court and religious inscriptions, even as Old Khmer remained the tongue of daily life. The first recognizable precursor to the Khmer Empire was Funan, a powerful trading kingdom flourishing between the 1st and 6th centuries CE in the Mekong Delta. Funan became a crossroads for trade between China, India, and the rest of Southeast Asia. As trade enriched the region, statecraft grew more sophisticated, and royal lineages tied their legitimacy to the gods. Eventually, Funan gave way to a new kingdom, Chenla, which shifted the center of power northward to the territory that would become the Khmer heartland. The transition from Chenla to what historians call the Khmer Empire is marked by a dramatic new phase in political and cultural ambition. In 802 CE, a powerful Khmer prince known as Jayavarman II declared himself the universal monarch, or Devarajaya, the god king, on the sacred mountain of Phnom Kulen. Jayavarman II's coronation ritual established the idea of the Khmer king as a living embodiment of Shiva, both a temporal and spiritual leader. This bold consolidation of power is often taken as the founding moment of the Khmer Empire, a civilization that would create wonders without peer in Southeast Asia. From this time forward, the rulers of the Khmer state pursued a vision of grandeur that reshaped the landscape itself. With each successive king, the empire's heartland at Angkor was transformed by new temples, palaces, reservoirs, and canals. Monuments not only to divine power, but to the extraordinary engineering and organizational skills of the Khmer people. Angkor would soon become not just a symbol, but the literal and metaphorical center of the Khmer world. Throughout the next few centuries, the empire expanded aggressively, forging a network of vassal states and dependencies through diplomatic marriages, warfare, and religious influence. Khmer armies marched across the plains and jungles, subduing rivals in modern-day Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, and beyond. At its greatest territorial reach, the empire controlled a vast expanse stretching from the coasts of the South China Sea to the mountains of northern Thailand, and from the borders of Burma to the Mekong Delta. This outward expansion was mirrored by inward transformation. The most dramatic and lasting marks of the Khmer Empire are its temples, the very embodiment of the civilization's aspirations. The evolution of temple architecture traced the ambitions of the kings. Early monuments combined brick and sandstone, drawing inspiration from Indian prototypes. Over time, Khmer architects and artisans developed a distinct style characterized by massive stone blocks, ornate bas-reliefs, towering central sanctuaries, and moats that symbolized both earthly power and cosmic order. By the 12th century, under the rule of Suryavarman II, the Khmer Empire reached one of its greatest moments of glory. Suryavarman's reign is forever immortalized in the temple complex at Angkor Wat, the largest religious monument in the world. More than just an act of piety, Angkor Wat was a political declaration, an assertion of divine kingship, and a monument to the king's ambition. Built as a temple to the Hindu god Vishnu, Its towers and galleries overflow with intricate carvings depicting epic stories, celestial beings, and scenes of daily life. The temple itself was conceived as a microcosm of the universe, with its central tower representing Mount Meru, the axis of heaven and earth in Hindu cosmology. Angkor Wat was only one jewel in a diadem of wonders. The city of Angkor itself covered more than 1,000 square kilometers, making it the largest pre-industrial urban center in the world. It housed hundreds of temples, palaces, ceremonial causeways, and the mighty Baray, vast artificial reservoirs that provided water for agriculture even during the dry season. At its peak, the city may have sustained up to 1 million inhabitants, a marvel of planning and logistics. Successive kings sought to outdo their predecessors. Jayavarman II, perhaps the greatest of Angkor's rulers, reigned during the late 12th and early 13th centuries. A Buddhist king who came to power after the expulsion of the Siem invaders, Jayavarman II left an indelible mark on the empire's landscape and spiritual orientation. Under his patronage, Mahayana Buddhism supplanted Hinduism as the state religion, and this shift was reflected in his building projects. His masterpiece was the awe-inspiring city temple of Angkor Thom, a walled enclosure crowned by the enigmatic towers of the Bayon. Smiling faces, carved in stone, gaze out serenely in all directions, thought by many scholars to represent Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of compassion, or perhaps the king himself imbued with divine attributes. Jayavarman VII also oversaw the creation of vast networks of hospitals, roads, and rest houses, concrete expressions of the new Buddhist ideal of charity and care for all living beings. Economically, the empire flourished on the strength of its rice agriculture, made possible by the complex irrigation systems built over generations. The rise of the Khmer Empire was inseparable from its mastery of water. Canals, moats, and reservoirs not only fed the people, but displayed the king's command over both earth and the divine. Trade also brought luxury goods, jade, gold, porcelain, cloth, from China, India, and further afield, testifying to Angkor's status at the heart of a vibrant regional exchange network. Society itself was highly stratified, with a powerful elite of priests, administrators, and nobility at the apex, and larger numbers of artisans, laborers, farmers, and slaves underpinning the economy. Village life was governed by age-old customs, but drew meaning from the great religious festivals and royal processions that punctuated the annual calendar. The Khmers were extraordinary artisans, and their culture left its mark not only on stone, but in dance, music, sculpture, and inscriptions. The bas-reliefs of Angkor Wat and Bayon reveal a world of myth and history. Scenes from the Ramayana and Mahabharata, lists of kings, depictions of battle, market life, and even cockfights. In these carvings, the grandeur of the court sits side by side with scenes of common people, women selling fish, children playing, warriors training in martial arts. By the 13th century, the Khmer Empire stood at the very peak of its power. Its capital shone as a beacon of civilization, attracting traders, diplomats, and pilgrims from across Asia. Chinese emissaries marveled at Angkor's scale and beauty, while the empire's influence radiated far beyond its borders. The Khmer language and scripts spread across neighboring lands, and the art and architecture of Angkor inspired imitators for centuries to come. Yet, the seeds of future change were already sown. The vast city, dependent on complex infrastructures and intricate social systems, became vulnerable to shifts in climate, social unrest, and external pressures. But for centuries, the Khmer Empire endured as the unrivaled force in mainland Southeast Asia, guided by visionary rulers who sought to unite heaven and earth on the plains of the Mekong. Looking back on this remarkable civilization, it is impossible not to marvel at its ingenuity and ambition. To this day, the temples of Angkor rise above the jungle, silent witnesses to a lost world, reminders of the heights that humanity can reach. The story of the Khmer Empire is not merely a chronicle of kings and battles. It is the unfolding of a people's dreams, etched in stone and water, that continue to inspire awe across the ages.